we back up in here with this Elektron analog Rytm MKII. Got a couple beats on this joint, and what I want to go through is Trig conditions. Just kind of show you how, if you come from an MPC or machine background, you won't have these kind of Trig conditions. And that's actually what makes this sequencer very unique. The fact that you have Trig conditions. Now, if you do come from an MPC or machine background, it has been said that, hey, those machines don't need Trig conditions because they got seemingly endless tracks and, so many steps available, and, it just works a different way. So you don't have to go to a different step and say, actually, I want this step on that track to trigger something else that's not typically on that track. You don't have to do that on those machines because you can just go ahead and say this track is dedicated to this particular instrument, and the other track I'll dedicate to another instrument. But what I think is special about Trig conditions is that it forces you to think a different way. So I have a lot of beats on here, right? And for the most part, I just like simple beat. Right? But, there's so much that you can do. Let's go through these beats right quick and just see what I can kind of demonstrate. I may just make a new beat to demonstrate the Trig conditions. Let's see, what's here? You are now Alright, so look, I'm gonna go to a beat that to a track, a sequence, a pattern, I should say, a pattern, and I'm just gonna make a new beat here. So, as typical, what we would typically do when we start this off is I want to take the scale and make that from 16 steps up to 32, so forth and so on. We're gonna make it 4 bars basically. So we're gonna get 64 steps out of this. The way you do that is go function, scale, and then just tap that. I don't know if you can see the screen really well, but basically we're in the scale window or menu. And every time I hit this scale button or page button, it takes the scale up again. We take it back down, 16, 32, 48, 64. And you can also go into advanced, go into the cursor, go advanced, then you can kind of play with the lengths in a lot of different ways, but we ain't gonna do that. We're gonna go back here, 64 steps. So that's the first thing we typically do. Now I'm just gonna make a simple beat and then just start kind of showing you what the Triggs can do, the Trig conditions can do. All right, so we'll say yes to that. Turn on the metronome. Let's see if we hit play. All right. So simply start this. I don't want to go live. So remember, when that's solid, you're in step sequence mode. When it's blinking, you're in live play mode. So we're just gonna make it solid, and let's see what track I'm on. Kick. 1 and 9. Then track, snare, and then we go 5 and 13. Alright. But my hats, I like to do those live. never fear. When this is in step mode, I can go to track, function, clear, that track. Go back and let's see if I can get my thing right. All right, so the other thing, just so you know, when you're sequencing, you don't have to use the buttons. The sensitivity is okay, and you can get used to it, but it's not the sensitivity that I prefer, that some of you might be used to from an MPC or other machines. These pads are definitely an improvement from the older ones, but at any rate, you can use the buttons too. Right, in live sequence mode. So at any rate, so that's the beat that we got. Now I'm gonna go and do some trigs on the kick. Go to track, put it in step mode. So yeah, we're gonna put it in track and go to step mode and just add some randomness. Too many. Oh, where's it? So if I want to do, I'm gonna turn these couple trigs right here. Boom, boom. You hold those down while in record mode. You can go to Trig. You can actually go to anything and change anything. So what's a Trig condition? It says, while I'm holding these down and record, any knob that I tweak or any setting that I tweak will be remembered in that sequence. So if I wanted to, I could actually go to these two steps for kicks, go to my sample source, and change that to a different sample. Let's make it something obvious. Now you should hear the difference. I'm gonna make it the Vox. I don't even know what sample it is, but we're gonna go with it and then detune it and add a little delay and reverb so you can really hear the difference. And that's on the kick track. And I'll turn them down a little bit. So it remembers what you did. And when you take your hand off of that, let's wait for it to come around again. All right, and I could go to these two kicks and just, let's tune them down a little bit. For those two steps, so when it comes back around, with these, I'm gonna turn those down a little bit more. And so that's basically Triggs. You can also, you could actually set this trig to do some wild stuff. So I'm gonna go back in here and go to, well, let's go to another place in the thing. Let's do 11 and 14. I'm gonna set the destination for the LFO to sample slot. What that's gonna do is start going through my sample pool. Turn that up a little bit. So you can see, I'm gonna really give it to it though. Well, you gotta be sure You can see you can do some cool stuff, but you know, it just takes a little playing around. Let's go to a little delay on that. Should come around here soon. And you can see that those are different things. It's pulling from the, it's actually pulling from the sample slot. So it's only going through a couple kicks, so it's changing the kick. You can do some real creative stuff with that. If you have an interesting pool of samples. So let's go and try to do some other Triggs. Let's tell it, yo, I wanted to pull a totally different sample, a different type of sample. Maybe you have all of your samples that you want already loaded here, and you want to tell it to, well, no, let's not do this. Let's go to track, and say you want this particular snare to be a clap or something. You can change it that way. I'm going to source. I'm going to change the synth engine from snare to, I don't even know if it's turned up, but let's go to clap. We'll just change it to a different snare. So anyway, let's go back to this track. And you can see that LFO is working where it's pulling in different things. So we're going to go to this track, back to the kick track. And I'm going to tell it, yo, those particular sounds, where were they? These two, 12 and 14. I am going to see that LFO is working now. I'm going to go here and I'm going to go to Trig conditions and tell it, yo, I don't want those two to play. 75% of the time, I don't want them to play, which means I put it on 25% for the Trig, and you're not going to hear those steps for 25% of the time. Good way to get variation. You can also use this to do fills, like so. Right? So the Trig conditions are really dope. Now, this is a really simple thing that I've done, but this kind of shows you the potential in this. And some of you all may have seen my initial video where I have this track, let's stop that for a second. This track, I have the LFO set to sample start, and I'm basically modulating the sample start time on this particular sample. So every time I hit it, it's gonna trigger at a different point in the sample. Right, so I can go into live play mode. Now I just went into chromatic mode. Now, this is not the most musical sort of demonstration, but it kind of gives you an idea of the type of things you can do just by utilizing those weird kind of parameters and conditions and trig blocks. Now, I can go into this track That's all the times. Those are all the triggers that I have for this particular. I can go there and go to Trig condition and turn that to 50% of the time. So those particular steps are only going to trigger 50% of the time. I do the same thing for these. Turn these to 33. Now those are only going to trigger 33% of the time. I can do the same thing for here. Put these on 13% of the time. Now you can see with the Triggs, the kind of possibilities that you got for turning just a simple little, or anything, no matter how complex or how simple, you can get things out of it that maybe you didn't think of. This is, I heard somebody say in the comments that this is one of those machines that if you ever find yourself at a loss for inspiration, this machine is deep enough that you can find things that you wouldn't typically think to program. And just by programming and allowing it to help you do the programming, you can come up with incredible little things or incredible huge things. So that's trig conditions on the Elektron analog Rytm MKII. Stay tuned. I'll do a little more. Let's go out with one of these beats.